from a fundamental task to task basis, and right, taking the quality piece out, taking out, I want to have an engaging experience that is going to drive interest. It's going to drive pushing people and stretching people to a different space. If we're taking that part out, just apples to apples, we're looking at content, or how do we get the content? How do we source it? Sure. I agree. Like task to task. Task to task.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is one of the advantages of all of these Gen AI tools, is to help with pulling together that content. Now, whether or not that content, again, we mentioned this already, is it ready? How accurate is it? If it's pulling from sources we know that are accurate, okay, that's fine. But are those sources up to date? If we're talking about just RISE courses in an LMS, what if there's cutting edge things that we didn't put into those RISE courses before? So how do we then pull in that content and make sure that it's accurate? So there's lots of little questions like that for me, which then lead me to the piece of that value of having that human there and the human interaction. I think it has to be a combination of the two things, right? We have to have human and we have to have AI. We can't just let it run off. Not run off, that's a horrible way to describe it, but just leverage Gen AI to build all of our content, because there's so many little nuances to that piece. Sure, static things that aren't changing fundamentally make sense, task to task. Things that are changing, things that we're trying to be provocative about, your same word when it comes to a learning perspective and stretch people. I don't see that as being a one-to-one.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason I touch on that is it's kind of the foundation level of data literacy for L&D, where we say, well, we have digital artifacts, whatever they may be. We have formats, maybe legacy formats. We have things that we have a package or a file structure that contains some data about some things. So it's got some information. It might have sort of metadata and things like that in it. And then what you would typically do in an academic environment, scientific environment, you would say, well, I'm going to do an intervention and I'm going to do some kind of comparison, whether it's a control group, you're looking at A/B testing, you look at pre-post testing, and you would say, I can, to some degree of confidence, say that there has been a change, and that change is not just due to chance. So I have an intervention, and that intervention produced value for the business. Now, in the age of generative AI, we have the ability or the opportunity to scale that kind of thing, to say, well, we have lots of interventions. Those interventions are conversational. We can, to some degree, tell from the data whether or not there has been a change, whether the intervention was efficacious or not. Being able to do everything I've just said requires a leap, a jump, maybe just a step in terms of data literacy for L&D teams. Do you think that's achievable?
We both of us have an academic background along with all of our experience within the industry as well. So I absolutely agree. And this is where I think we need to get that. It could be, again, step, leap, bridge that we're building, however far it needs to be or will be for different people. It has to happen. We have to be better at understanding data, and to not just fundamentally data, right? But then the processes of what you were describing around piloting content, getting data to be able to explain that this program, this thing, this asset, whatever it is, made an impact. How it made an impact, will depend. If you're trying to measure business goals, or if you're trying to measure something else, whatever it might be. But to be able to pull all of that together, you have to have data skills. You have to have analysis skills. You have to have critical thinking skills, which is data literacy, all of the things that we're talking about. So it's a non-issue for me. It has to happen. We have to be better at this. Gen AI is not going away. We need to take advantage of it. We have to think about what is the best way to do that. And then to do that, we have to have data literacy skills. We just have to.
Absolutely. So that's why it's part of the model, right? The models that we've written a paper about. So let's just run through that model. So we've got strategy, we've got operating model, we have technology and data and the interplay between those two things. And the final bit of the model in our paper is the concept of the environment. So whether that's the social environment, the technological environment, what's happening in the marketplace, the political environment, we have in the EU, we have the AI Act that's enacted, that's coming into force. I think various other countries. Do you have this in the States? You have a regulatory environment in the States, right?
EU tends to be around a lot of things a little more ahead. most of the states on these types of things for whatever reason. And I do think there's going to be a push, I'm sure, more around this. So like even where I'm at, we have at EPAM, we are pushing out, well, although I would argue that we're in the cutting edge of a lot of things AI in general, but we're pushing out for everyone in our enterprise e-learnings and trainings and things like that around AI. Do I think it's coming for everybody? Yes, because this is something we cannot ignore. I think for the states, it's a bit more optional at the moment. So depending on what that strategy and that vision is that in your purpose, which we keep hitting home on for your organization, you'll see this coming in different waves for the different organizations. Clients and organizations that I've been talking to in the EU are ahead of the game on this. So we have been helping around training. You mentioned the act that has come through. Right now, I would say a lot of AI training, Gen AI in particular, but AI generally is really starting to kickstart in the EU. And then obviously there's pockets in the US that are pushing it.
It's not really about the regulatory environment, also the policy environment. I think a lot of the big tech houses, the Microsofts and the Googles of this world also have responsible AI principles and things like that they're making sure that they're leading the charge in this space. And there is also the societal impact, how people are feeling and what the discourse and the media and things like that are, and how that poses risks. So the usual kind of spectrum of risks that we would see, reputational, legal risks and things like that. Copyright is, of course, part of that as well. But all of this, what I'm saying, effectively, you could do a pest analysis on this, but effectively it's the external environment that goes hand in hand with things like culture and skills and some of the other aspects that we've touched on in the change management piece. So just running end to end through that model, these are the factors that one should consider if we're looking at AI implementation, and that's what we've outlined in the paper as part of our data literacy drive, right?
Yes.
So we've gone through that model. We've had a robust discussion around it. I would like to obviously say it's been a pleasure working with you on this paper, but thank you so much for this particular time, and I'm sure we'll do it again. We'll keep the conversation going.
Yes, looking forward to it
Soon.